The sun was beginning to dip behind the jagged hills of Whiskey Creek when the dust stirred up again, swirling around the wooden porches and half-buried wagon wheels that marked what was left of the old town. Once, Whiskey Creek had been the beating heart of the frontier, a place where miners, gamblers, and dreamers gathered to make their fortune. Now, it was just a whisper on the wind, a forgotten ghost of its own legend. When Clara Jennings drove down the dirt road that led to the ruins, she didn't expect to feel so watched. The cracked sign that read, Whiskey Creek, Est, 1878, swung lazily in the wind, its paint long faded. Her boots crunched on the gravel as she stepped out of her truck, the setting sun casting long shadows across the skeletal remains of the town. She had come to write a story, a historical piece for the Frontier Echo, a magazine that thrived on nostalgia and mystery. But the moment she arrived, she felt that this place held more than old tales. It held secrets. Her grandmother used to tell her bedtime stories about Whiskey Creek, how the town had boomed overnight after gold was discovered in the hills, and how it died just as suddenly when the mines ran dry. But there were darker tales too, about a fire that destroyed half the town, about a sheriff who vanished one night without a trace, and about a creek that whispered when the moon was full. "It's just the wind, child," her grandmother would say, her eyes never quite meeting Clara's. Just the wind carrying old regrets. Clara set up her small recording device and began to walk through what used to be Main Street. The saloon was little more than a shell, but she could almost hear the faint echo of laughter and piano music. The old hotel stood stubbornly at the end of the street, its faded sign reading Silver Spur Inn. She decided to start there. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. A chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, and the wooden floor creaked beneath her feet. She found the guest ledger still sitting on the counter, its pages yellowed and brittle. The last entry was dated August 3, 1901. The name scribbled in black ink read, Sheriff Elias Ward. Her pulse quickened. Sheriff Ward was the man her grandmother used to whisper about, the one who supposedly disappeared the night the fire broke out. According to legend, he had been investigating a series of thefts from the mining company, thefts that some believed led back to the very people who founded the town. But before he could make an arrest, the Silver Spur caught fire, and Ward was never seen again. Clara took a photo of the ledger and jotted notes in her journal. She had studied journalism at university, but it was history that fueled her spirit. She wanted to uncover the truth beneath the myths, the people behind the legends. Yet as she explored the inn, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was following her. Outside, the sun had vanished completely, leaving a bruised purple sky in its wake. She heard the creak before she saw it, a low, murmuring sound that seemed almost like a voice. The air grew colder as she approached, and the scent of wet earth filled her lungs. The creek snaked through the edge of town, shimmering faintly under the moonlight. She crouched beside the water, listening. For a moment, all she heard was the steady trickle. Then came the whisper, "Find him." Clara froze. The sound was faint, like breath on her ear. She turned, but no one was there. Her heart thudded in her chest. She must have imagined it, the wind playing tricks again. But when she leaned closer to the water, the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Find the truth." Her flashlight flickered. The current shifted, swirling around something metallic. Clara reached into the cold water and pulled it out. A rusted sheriff's badge, its engraving still faintly visible. Her breath caught. Sheriff Ward. The next morning, she drove to the nearest town, Red Hollow, and found the local archives. The clerk, an older man named Ben, raised his eyebrows when she told him what she'd found. "Whiskey Creek, huh?" he said, leaning back in his chair. "Haven't heard that name in years. Folks say it's haunted." "I don't believe in ghosts," Clara said, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Ben nodded slowly. "Maybe not, but that place has history. Sheriff Ward was a good man. Tried to clean up the corruption. They say he had evidence, papers, ledgers, names. But when the fire started, it all went up in smoke." Or someone made sure it did, Clara said quietly. Ben's eyes darkened. Maybe. But if you're going back there, you be careful. The creek remembers, and it doesn't always whisper kindly. That night, Clara returned to Whiskey Creek. She couldn't explain why, but she felt drawn there, as if the town itself was asking her to uncover something buried deep. The moon hung low, and the creek shimmered silver. She followed the trail behind the inn, where the ruins of the old jail still stood. Inside, she found the remains of iron bars and a few scattered bones. But something else caught her attention, a loose floorboard beneath the sheriff's desk. With trembling hands, she pried it open. Inside was a small tin box, blackened with soot. She opened it carefully, revealing a stack of letters wrapped in twine. The writing was faded but legible. The top letter was addressed to Elias Ward. She read by flashlight, "Greater than, Sheriff, I have done what you asked. The company's books do not balance, and I fear what will happen when they find out I've seen them. The mine owners are hiding something. The gold shipments don't match the records. Someone's stealing from their own men. Be careful, Elias. They are watching you. M.W. Clara's mind raced. M.W. Those initials matched a name she'd seen in the hotel ledger, Margaret Weller. The town's schoolteacher, according to old records. She must have been helping the sheriff. There were more letters, each one painting a clearer picture of what happened in the days before the fire. The mine owners, two men named James Cutter and Albert Rhodes, had been skimming gold and selling it privately. When Sheriff Ward got too close, they set fire to the inn to destroy the evidence. But Ward must have hidden some proof before he died. Clara looked around the dark jail cell. The walls were scorched, but behind the sheriff's desk, there was a strange outline on the floor, an uneven patch of stone. She brushed away the dirt and discovered a hollow compartment. Inside was a small leather-bound book. The cover read, "Sheriff's Journal." Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Ward had written everything, the names, the dates, the deals. The final entry was dated the night of the fire. "Greater than, they are coming for me. Cutter and Rhodes, I have hidden what I found near the water that speaks. If I don't make it through the night, the creek will tell the truth." Clara's heart pounded. Near the water, the creek, she ran outside, guided by moonlight, until she reached the bank. The whispers were louder now, almost insistent. She knelt by the same spot where she'd found the badge and began digging into the mud with her hands. After a few minutes, her fingers struck metal again, a small lockbox, half buried in the earth. Inside were more documents, all perfectly preserved. Forged contracts, gold tallies, and personal letters between Cutter and Rhodes detailing their crimes. Clara exhaled shakily. This was it, the truth buried for over a century. But then she heard something else. Footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, shining her flashlight toward the sound. A figure stood at the edge of the trees, half shrouded in mist. "Who's there?" she called. The figure didn't move. It was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like a long coat and hat. "Sheriff Ward," she whispered before she could stop herself. The air grew still. The whispering creek fell silent. Then, in a low voice that carried like wind through leaves, she heard, "Thank you." The figure faded into the mist, and the water began to flow again. Clara stood frozen for a long time, her heart aching with awe and fear. She knew what she had to do. The next week, her article hit the front page of the Frontier Echo. Whiskey Creek Whispers, uncovering an old town's truth. It was more than a story, it was redemption. She detailed the corruption, the arson, and the bravery of Sheriff Elias Ward, who died protecting the truth. The evidence she'd found was turned over to the Historical Society, and Whiskey Creek was declared a heritage site. But for Clara, the most unforgettable part wasn't the recognition or the fame. It was the night she heard the whisper of gratitude carried on the wind. She visited the town one last time before leaving for good. The creek was calm now, peaceful. She tossed the sheriff's badge back into the water and said softly, "Rest easy, Sheriff." Your truth's been told. As she turned to leave, a gentle breeze swept through the ruins. For just a second, she thought she heard laughter, the sound of life returning to the dead town. And beneath it all, a whisper so faint it could have been a memory. Whiskey Creek remembers, and for the first time in over a century, it finally spoke the truth.